Now to South America, and on the border of Uruguay and Argentina, an ambitious joint venture to harness the power of the river Uruguay. "30 years after the initial decision was taken by the presidents of both Argentina and Uruguay, the Salto Grande scheme is finally taking shape in concrete form. The massive civil engineering operation, spanning the great Uruguay River to exploit its vast reserves of power, is a monument to the cooperation of both developing countries. Even by modern standards, it's an exciting project on a grand scale. Looking at it today, it's hard to believe that work began just 2 years ago, at the beginning of April 1974, though it'll be at least another 3 years before Salto Grande produces its first hydroelectric power. Salto Grande means Big Leap, the name of nearby waterfalls which will disappear when the dam begins to operate. And the decision to build Salto Grande was indeed a big leap, financially. The final cost's likely to be almost $1 billion, but the advantages are overwhelming. This is what the countries will get for their investment: the dam itself, twin powerhouses on each bank of the river, and 12 groups of hydroelectric turbines. On top of the dam's wall, there'll be a road and rail bridge, and on the Argentine side, a new shipping canal, capable of handling vessels with a draft of up to 3 meters. Perhaps the most important statistic about Salto Grande is that it will produce electricity for half the cost of power from any practical nuclear alternative. And ultimately, that power will be shared equally by both of the partner nations. Each day, thousands of laborers, drivers, engineers and surveyors travel onto the construction site. Many come from the town of Concordia in Argentina, and any project which provides jobs for workers from Argentina can only be welcome. For Argentina has rocketing unemployment and inflation measured in hundreds of % a year. A new job and a living for the families of those who are working on Salto Grande is one of the more valuable fringe benefits of a scheme like this. And there'll be others. The presence of the dam is expected to encourage industrial growth in nearby Concordia and in the city of Salto on the Uruguayan bank. Water behind the dam will be available to irrigate the surrounding land and give local agriculture a new lease of life. And that water, in fact an artificially created lake covering more than 78,000 hectares here, will provide a new holiday playground for yachtsmen, anglers and campers, though that's all a little hard to visualize at this stage. There's plenty of energy going into the dam, and by 1979 there'll be plenty coming out. The might of the Rio Uruguay forcing its way through the structure's huge pre-stressed concrete canyons will drive a dozen groups of turbines, producing over 1,600 megawatts. When all this work's completed, and the water flows for the first time, Uruguay will take only 17% of the available power from just 2 of the turbines. Later, when all the turbines come on stream, Uruguay will get a full 50% share of power. That's 3 times the country's entire needs at present, or 14 times the output of Uruguay's most powerful existing hydroelectric scheme. Argentina, whose needs are greater, will net half the whole country's requirements from this single dam. Building such a massive concrete structure needs a gargantuan helping of gravel, sand and cement. And to fill that need, the engineers have established on the site their own plants for sand and rock crushing. At its simplest, creating a dam means excavating and constructing, digging deep and building tall, taking rock and earth out, putting concrete in. And at the Salto Grande site, both operations happen on a staggering scale. Before the structure is completed, well over 1.5 million cubic meters of earth will have been moved. Into the construction will go almost 6 million cubic meters of stone and almost 2 million of concrete. Put another way, the raw materials for the dam could make 12,000 kilometers of roads or homes for over 750,000 people. Not every job can be handled by the giant 70-ton Terex trucks. On top of the dam, old-fashioned steam power comes into its own. Steam power and manpower. Eventually, this is where the road and rail systems of both countries will link up, 14 stories above the Uruguay River. But the first stage in that scheme starts with a simple embankment of earth. The dam area is not a highly populated one, but inevitably some families will have to lose their houses when the man-made lake behind the dam becomes a reality. This is Federación on the Argentine side. It's 50 kilometers from the dam and currently home to some 6,000 people. Federación's a sleepy sort of place that hasn't seen many changes since it was first established 150 years ago. But the dam certainly will mean changes. Almost all the working population depends for work on the town's thriving sawmills. But the sawmills will be drowned beneath the waters of the Rio Uruguay, and the center of the local timber industry will have to be set up afresh elsewhere. Virtually all the buildings of Federación will be flooded. Houses, shops, the library. Over the family houses, water skiers will swerve, jump and revel, while the baited hooks of anglers will droop and probe to tempt fish swimming through the church. Tiny tides and currents will nudge at the chapel, and if it's left, perhaps toll its old cast bell. The town's oldest inhabitant takes the decisions of the planners philosophically. After all, the dam is meant to bring progress and prosperity to the surrounding countryside. And to be fair, the wishes of the people have not been ignored. Here, just 2 kilometers from Federación, on a spot they've chosen themselves, the population will be rehoused in over 1,000 modern practical dwellings. If the dam scheme has meant planning for the future, it's also meant planning to save the past. For the drowning of the Bañadero region means time's running out for archaeologists who want a last chance to excavate for relics. It's a different kind of excavation from that nearby at the dam. It's odd to watch the dig proceed at such a pace. After all, some of the relics have lain undisturbed for 9,000 years, and you'd think another month or two wouldn't make much difference. But state and private experts realize the bulldozers and cranes are waiting to move in, and 20th century time is precious. The area's proved rich both in history and in finds, yielding valuable evidence of primitive civilizations. Scrapers and sharpened stone tools were among the commonest discoveries. Simple inventions, but revolutionary in their time. What would the naked, hairy men who used such rude tools have thought of the colossal stone wall that modern man's erecting on his homeland to give his descendants light and heat at the flick of a switch? The Salto Grande Dam, a bold effort by two developing nations aimed at enhancing the lives of their people by helping to power the industry their economies need.